Today on Locked On Bama, we're going to talk a lot of recruiting stuff. It's also my last day in Vegas, so shed a tear. But for the most part, we're going to keep it with recruiting. Peter Woods just released his top four. Jimmy and I will discuss that. Also, a big tight end. We'll be visiting Alabama soon. So stay tuned for Locked On Bama.
Locked On Bama, your daily podcast on the Alabama Crimson Tide. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, everybody, and welcome back into Locked On Bama. Luke Robinson, that's me. Jimmy Stein, that's him. Jimmy, how are you today?
I'm doing great. Just enjoying another day at the pickleball courts.
This is so funny. I'm like, is it Yasser Arafat that never slept in the same place twice? That's what one of our mutual friends said about me. Is like, you never sleep in the same place twice. This is my last day in Vegas, and I'm sitting here at this desk at MGM, and I've got this light above me trying to get the right shade on me that doesn't show my crow's feet after 4 days in Vegas. And I can't tell if I'm doing a podcast or I'm interrogating a suspect on Law and Order. But anyway, Jimmy, Peter Woods just came out with his top four, the fabulous defensive lineman from Thompson High School. Everybody knows about him. He's a super badass, and he's one of the top players in the country. And, Alabama is on that list. And so what can you tell us about this? You just tweeted about it just then, literally.
Yeah. This is brand new. His Final Four is sort of news. But, people get a little bored when I say that the number one prospect for Alabama is someone inside the state. But in my opinion, Luke, Alabama's top priority every year should be the best prospect in Alabama. It should kind of be a goal to always sign the best player in Alabama. And in my mind, it's Peter Woods.
Yeah, and look, this year, oh my gosh, the people watching YouTube just watched you cough up a kidney. They're still doing it. I didn't have enough time. We usually go on these rants when we talk about recruiting. You usually talk for 5 minutes, so I mute myself.
I had to cough real bad. Yeah, I had to cough real bad. It was bad. I'm not a big cougher. I'm not really, but boy, that one was like, whoa. I bet it was from I was doing a little yard work this morning, just enough to breathe in some pollen. That's probably what happened.
Did you cough up Peter Woods?
I coughed up the pollen equivalent of Peter Woods.
That pollen, that was 5-star pollen. All right, so he has cut his list to Alabama, Clemson, Florida, and Oklahoma. First of all, the first thing that stands out to me about this, Florida is making some pretty serious headway with Billy Napier, I think, in the recruiting circles. They weren't talked about. They've always been a thing. Florida's always going to be a thing, right? They're the state school in one of the most fertile recruiting grounds in the country. But the last couple of years, I dare I say the last 5 or so years, they've been sort of, okay. But Billy Napier apparently has them in on a bunch of dudes. In fact, Josh Newberg, who, can be sort of hit or miss with this. By the way, I love Josh Newberg. I want to say, full disclosure, back in the day, a long time ago, Jimmy, like before I ever thought about getting into this, he and I talked for some reason, like before Twitter, before all this, we talked via email for some reason. And he was like, man, you know a lot about Alabama recruiting. He said, I'm going to put you as a contributor to my magazine. And I was like, what? He was like, yeah. He said, you've told me a lot about Alabama football. I appreciate it. Sure enough, that year, Luke Robinson as a contributor to his magazine. Now, I got nothing for it except my name on that magazine, which I thought was very cool. But anyway, so I like me some Josh Newberg. Regardless, he crystal balled. Is it Cormani McClain? Is that how you say that?
Cormani. Yeah, Cormani McClain.
And Tony Mitchell to Florida. Now, I think that's a little premature for at least for Tony Mitchell. I certainly think it is for Cormani McClain too. But anyway, I go back to my whole point was that Florida is making headway and making enough noise where a national recruiting guy like Josh Newberg is crystal balling dudes that Alabama, Oklahoma, Clemson, Ohio State, Georgia want to Florida, which is something that hadn't been happening of late.
That's right. I also agree it's a little premature on both. Although, today, if we're wagering, and you're sitting in the wagering capital of the earth, if we're wagering, I would say Cormani to Florida sounds right. Tony Mitchell to Alabama sounds right. But Tony Mitchell is open, unlike some of the other kids from Thompson. He's open to other schools. I think he's taken a real interest in other places and seeing other places. And you can't help but get a high on a school right after you visited. And then maybe you want to go see him again, or you like the coach, or you meet a girl, or whatever happens. I'm not surprised that Tony Mitchell is in the conversation other places. But as of today, as we sit here right now, I would still project Tony Mitchell to sign with Alabama, and Peter Woods certainly to sign with Alabama. And I put Peter Woods up there with Arch Manning and Eli Holstein, Richard Young, as the very top prospects on Alabama's board, regardless of position.
Jimmy, when we come back, we're going to talk a little bit more about recruiting, as one of the top tight ends in the country out west is going to be visiting Alabama and Georgia here shortly. But until then, I want to tell you about Built Bar. These things are delicious. They're nutritious. They're scrumptious. I talk about them all the time. I had a resolution to eat right. I'm not doing that except when I eat Built Bars, because I've had a couple of trips. And when you take trips out west a couple of times, you're going to eat poorly. But when I get back, I'm on my Built Bar kick like you wouldn't believe. Daddy's going to fit in these jeans one way or the other, if I need a shoehorn. But have you tried the puffs from Built Bar? They're fantastic. They're covered in chocolate. They're fluffy. They're marshmallowy. They're protein-infused marshmallow. I mean, who would have thunk it? I mean, the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man, if he was infused with protein like these puffs are, the Ghostbusters never would have stood a chance. Go to Built.com and scroll down to the macros chart. You'll be blown away by all the statistics there. Go to Built.com, use promo code LOCK15, get 15% off that order. Use promo code LOCK15 for 15% off that order at Built.com. These things are awesome. I promise you. They've got all kind of flavors, and they're all covered in chocolate. Jimmy and I love them. You'll love them too. All right, Jimmy, on your site,
Yep.
On 3 actually talks about number 1 tight end Duce Robinson. He's going to be visiting Alabama, and Georgia's going to visit Alabama Friday and Saturday, and then Alabama Sunday and Monday. First of all, 2 things that stand out to me. Well, 3 things. We need a tight end. Georgia doesn't. Georgia's got tight ends out the yin yang. Quit getting all the tight ends, Georgia. Secondly, this is a great debate. Do you like Duce with the UE or just the U? I need the UE. And finally, does it help any? Is it better one way or the other that you visit on Friday, Saturday, or visit on Sunday, Monday? And let me answer that really quickly from my perspective. Right now, I don't think it makes a hill of beans difference. I think Sunday, Monday is actually fine, because maybe you even get to be around campus when there's some kids around and you get to see some action on campus, because right now there's nothing really going on. Now, Georgia and Alabama might have a baseball home game. I know Alabama does this weekend, but that's not going to stir the drink of any of these football players. I mean, that's not enough. And Georgia's not good enough either. I mean, it's not like he's going to Ole Miss, which is number 1 team in the country right now. He's going to Georgia, and I think they're okay. They're in the same boat we are for the most part. So I don't think that really makes a hill of beans difference. And there's no home basketball game, obviously, or anything like that. In fact, I could make the argument that I'm happier he's going to be Sunday, Monday, because Duke, Carolina, and Kansas, Villanova is Saturday night. And I mean, everybody's going to be sort of watching that instead of doing something else. So I think he can take in more of Alabama on Sunday, Monday. That is such terrible homerism logic. I understand, but I'm just trying to throw
It really was.
It really was that. It was grade A Bamarism.
I think Saturday. Here's one thing. Now, this is just me. Maybe I'm like this and no one else is, and maybe it's my immaturity, my famous immaturity. But I think a Saturday afternoon in Tuscaloosa in the springtime, especially now when the weather's getting really nice, and it's a beautiful day today. I'm sure it's beautiful in Tuscaloosa today. A Saturday afternoon, if you walk the length of University Boulevard and go by all the fraternity parties who so many of them during the spring have outdoor band parties that start in the afternoon. And you just walk by the frat band parties and get to the strip, and Galette's is packed, and the Houndstooth is packed, and people are the kids are already out drinking, and everything is just feels really alive and exciting, and the weather's great, and the stadium's right there in the background of it all. And I think the Saturday is big, but that's just because I like it. I'm not a 17-year-old tight end from California. Now, when they tour the football building, which is what they really should be interested in, and they are, because when you're a football player at Alabama now, other than when you go to class, you're basically in the Malmore facility, most of the day and night. And, whether you're there on a Tuesday or a Friday, wouldn't matter in the building. I think inside that building looks the same day in, day out, flurry of activity, great, best facility in the country. But campus itself, I love Saturday afternoons, about 3 or 4 o'clock during the spring. And you don't have to be going to a sporting event. You don't have to be going to football. You can just be going to pick up a appetizer or two and some beers on the strip. To me, it's still a blast. I love to do that. Mute. You're on mute. You're on mute. You're on mute. You are still on mute.
I know I'm still on mute. You caught me off guard. I was actually laughing at you because I was like, okay, all that's great. And I love your take on waxing poetic about Alabama on a Saturday afternoon. I think that's wonderful. Can you tell us about this damn tight end?
Him. Him. I thought you were going to spring on me the meme, the famous meme of what's his name? The actor Steve Buscemi in his backwards hat and a skateboard, when he's
that's funny. What's up, fellow kids?
What's up, fellow kids? Yeah, that's
okay. That is all right. You're going to have to talk about the. I want you to talk about the tight end in the next segment because I want to tell you.
Him.
I want you to tell you a quick story about this. You were talking about you were waxing poetic, literally, about Alabama on a Saturday afternoon, all those things. And again, sorry for being on mute, people. I'm trying to make it so you have the best experience. I got kids in the background, didn't want to block that noise out. Anyway, when I was at Alabama, I was an SAE, but my first year there, because I didn't drink, I didn't smoke, I didn't do anything when I first got to Alabama. I didn't do anything. I mean, I wasn't a prude. I wasn't like this power Christian or anything. I just didn't do any of those things. I didn't do any drugs, didn't do anything. And so when I got to Alabama, it was sort of like fish out of water for me because, I mean, it's #1 party school in the country, right? Well, I get there and like the first night I'm there, I pledge KA by accident, literally by accident. They hand me a pledge pen, showing me all these pictures of this other stuff, said, here. I took the pledge pen, and they were like, congratulations. I was like, oh, God. Well, because I didn't know anything about them. I didn't know anybody in the thing. I didn't know nothing. Long story short, they were good people. I ended up de-pledging later. But while we were going through rush, the current pledges also try and rush other pledges to join potential pledges. And there was one thing at Alabama. They would bring groups of people by to look at your fraternity house, right? Or sorority or whatever, and you can choose from them. But you never really picked those guys because they were sort of university organized or something. I can't remember what the story was. This is a long time ago. One of the groups that came by had a 45-year-old. Thought he was there for like his son. He had on Bermuda shorts. Jimmy, if I'm lying, I'm dying. He had on Bermuda shorts. He was 45. He looked 62. You could tell like he had hard all his life in accounting and he worked under a light like I'm under right now, whatever this is, all his life. And what his story was, and I'm telling you the truth. His story was, I've worked hard my whole life.
Are you sure this isn't Old School? This is the movie Old School. You're just This is just the movie Old School.
I'm so mad.
Was this Will Ferrell?
Anyway, so the guy said, guys, I worked hard my whole life. And he didn't say it this coolly. I mean, he was a goofy bastard from Phoenix. That's another reason. That's another tie to this, the tight ends from Phoenix. And he said,
Phoenix City or Phoenix?
Phoenix. That's why he had on Bermuda shorts. So he says, guys, I've worked hard my whole life. I'm retired. I didn't get to experience the in college there before because I spent all my time studying is 1999. It was only, ironically, 1991 at the time. And I said, okay, and like all the actors were like, this is the creepiest thing that's ever happened. This happened so long ago, this guy's got to be dead now. But that's also morbid. But, and the guy apparently like gave Alabama a bunch of money up front. I mean, there was some weirdo story about this, like for the ability to.
Now that's back to school. I know this is old school and back to school
mixed together. But Jimmy, the guy, I mean, the KAs are known for being Southern gentlemen, like very polite. They were like, "Yes, sir. Thank you for stopping." Oh, don't call me sir. Call me boy. We were like, not quite. We'll see. You're on our list of people not to ask. But and so it turns out, of course, nobody gets. This guy was irate. He called literally every fraternity president and tore them a new one verbally because he felt like he was misled. I was like, sir. But anyway, okay. That's my old school combo story. And that really did happen.
So he was enrolled. He was enrolled as a regular full-time student.
Yes. I don't know if he actually went to school anymore because, I mean, now what's the point? You can't be a GDI at Alabama at 45 and expect to go to all the parties. It's hard to be a GDI at 20 and get invited to all the parties. It's Alabama.
Right.
Was so fraternity oriented at the time, especially like crazy. And this guy was, I mean, everywhere he showed up, people were like, this is the worst narc undercover I've ever seen. He would have like a Wednesday night drinking club shirt.
Yeah, I was liking the guy until he made all the phone calls. That ruined him. But I was digging this. It was a pretty Jimmy thing to do until the phone calls.
Been you my boy Blue before you my boy Blue. All right, Jimmy. After months of playing, college basketball has determined the top teams for the Final Four and will determine this year's national championships weekend. BetOnline is your number one source for all your betting info. From all the latest odds, contests, and player props, you name it, they got it at betonline.net. BetOnline.net remains the best spot for all your sports developments, including podcasts and reviews in all the leagues this season. And it's not just basketball, folks. They got everything you need at BetOnline. Bet on whatever you want to, including your favorite casino Vegas games. Website today and use your mobile device to learn more about the trends and action. BetOnline is where the game starts. Go to BetOnline ASAP. All right, Jimmy, tell us about this tight end that we've neglected.
You're talking about Duce Robinson from California. Now you're talking about?
Yes, my cousin.
Your cousin Duce. I like Deuce, like the original David Palmer is my favorite Duce, by the way. And that's how Duce should be, in honor of David Palmer for the rest of our lives or the rest of anyone's lives. Duce is I think he's a number 2 tight end in the country, or maybe even number one. On 3. Nash, is he number 1? Yeah, he's from Phoenix. He knows your guy.
That's what I'm saying. He might be.
He knows your guy.
Son.
Could be. This is what's interesting to me about, we're just now really recruiting Duce. I don't think at this point it's fair to say that it's likely he ends up at Alabama. I'll just say any kid from the West Coast that visits Alabama is pretty serious about Alabama. This is not an official visit, so this is on his dime, his time, his weekend. These kids don't have an unlimited number of weekends, especially with school in session. So he's serious about Alabama. In terms of how realistic it is, it's just too early. I'll just say this. I believe Alabama has now offered 6 or 8 of the top tight ends in the country. It's clearly a high priority for Alabama. And unfortunately, there is not a tight end prospect in the in-state group that is even close to being an Alabama offer type kid. So the answer to tight end is not going to come from the state of Alabama. They're going to have to go somewhere and get one. Just my personal opinion in terms of what I would love to see happen. As you guys know, I love Arch Manning as a prospect. Arch's tight end is really good. It's a kid named Will Randall. I don't know that he's top 10 in the nation, but he'd be in the argument. He's kind of reminiscent in some ways of Miller Forrestall. I think he's actually more similar to Preston Dial and Brad Smelly, sort of a combination of those two that have played for Alabama in the past. His name's Will Randall. Both of his parents went to school at Alabama and were at Alabama, but at the same time you were, Luke. So his parents would have been your age, and I think his dad was in a fraternity. I'm supposed to know which one that is because I got friends that told me about this. But anyway, that's who I like. I mean, I like Will Randall, and then the reason being is Arch and Will aren't a package deal, but you take Will, it's going to give you a good advantage with Arch because they are really close. They already have a great chemistry together. Arch will make Will even better. So I like Will Randall, but it's just because I sort of associate him with Arch. But he's good enough, by the way. He's an SEC prospect for any place with or without Arch. He's a good prospect.
And finally, Jimmy from Miami of Ohio, out of the Russell Shoals area, has entered the transfer portal. Basketball-wise, certainly rumored to be in on him, and then maybe Brandon Murray out of LSU, also in the transfer portal. LSU lost him for portal basketball-wise. I mean, they literally did, and recruits. They're going to be hurting, and Alabama's connected to Murray too. You know anything about those two?
Sears, yes. Murray, I got to look into that. Sears, I just know from a few different sources. Talked to some basketball sources yesterday. I think Mark Sears to Alabama is, I'm going to call it right now, highly realistic. I'm not going to use the word probable, but I want to. But let's just say highly realistic is how I'd put it right now. He's outstanding. I like him even more than I like the Princeton point guard. Mark is a combo guard. He plays the point. He can play the two guard. He's a scoring point guard. What fascinates me about Mark Sears, Luke, is that he's an in-state guy that didn't generate a lot of Alabama or SEC attention while he played high school basketball. He's sort of a kid that seems to me has really blossomed post 18 years old. And that's not crazy. That's not. How do y'all think John Morant ended up at Murray State? I mean, this happens, and I think it's fascinating when it does. Mark Sears became an SEC basketball talent while enrolled at Ohio University, and that makes him interesting. We have a huge need at point guard, assuming J.D. Davison is going. By the way, I read a message board this morning. I read a lot of the boards just to take the pulse of what's going on, not just our On3 board. One thing that surprised me, Luke, is there's a lot of Alabama fans out there sort of optimistic that J.D. Davison is returning. I don't know where that comes from. I'm not saying he's leaving. I don't know that. I know of nothing. I'll just say I'm not optimistic at all that he's returning to Alabama. I have zero optimism. I just don't know because he hasn't announced anything. So On3 can't report anything until we have two ironclad sources that confirm it. And we don't right now. But I'm just saying I'm surprised when I see talk of we can't take this point guard from Ohio and the point guard from Princeton when we have J.D. Davison coming back and Jaden Bradley coming in. And I'm like, why would anybody think J.D. Davison's coming back? Why would anybody think that? The fact that we're recruiting all these point guards should be telling us something.
Exactly. I mean, that's exactly what we've been saying. Look, if you want to be optimistic about this, I mean, I get that. That's fair. Yeah. But it doesn't make a lot of sense. I mean, that's just, homerism. And I mean, I'm using that term a lot this podcast. But anyway, Jimmy, got to run. Got to get out of Vegas with whatever I have left, which is very little. I'm leaving two of my children, taking two with me, and I feel like I've come out ahead.
What happens in Vegas? What happened in Vegas stayed in Vegas, and so are your children.
So are half my litter. All right, buddy. We'll talk again soon, and until then, roll Tide.
Roll Tide.